Yeah, hello and welcome to episode number 6 of using conceptbase for conceptual modeling and meta modeling. Last time we defined a simple entity relationship diagramming method and linked that to a process modeling language and defined some queries to analyze the process models, for example, for what is a start statement in a process model. This time we will talk about how to assign dedicated graphical types to the different elements of such a model that can be visualized as a graph. So let's start with that. I have prepared the example definitions on a website. I will include the URL below so that you can easily follow this episode. So last time we defined the entity relationship method and this task model, process model. The definitions here are stored in a text file, and I copy them and paste them, and then we are on the same state as last time. It takes a while. Okay, so now this is told. So the next step would be to define, to assign graphical types to the key elements like entity type, relationship type, and task. To do so, we have to define a so-called palette. And this is technically a bit difficult or looks a bit complicated. To make things a bit easier, I have defined a transformation palette that translates or integrates your definitions into what conceptbase expects from a graphical palette. This is mostly default graphical types that the graph editor of conceptbase expects. So this is called XPalette, and that is just a bunch of rules about these default types, like what is the default type for, let's see, for individuals, like nodes. If you know nothing about nodes, we will use this default type. So this is the X palette. We don't have to go into much details, but rather focus on the dedicated graphical types. So let's move that here so we can concentrate on one window. So the first is about the way how entity types should be displayed. That is a so-called graphical type. Here it's called entity underscore GT for graphical type. And that has a couple of properties. That's the first one is a background color. Background color of this node shall be white. So this is RGB 255 for red, 255 for green, and the same for blue. So this is a white color. The text color here is set to black. Line color is set to black as well. The shape is set to rectangle, rect. You have to use this keyword rect if you want to have a rectangle. The line width around used for the rectangle is set to 1, so that's the minimum. And there's implemented by, and this is a technical thing, individual here, CB individual means it's displayed as a node. Then the next is a so-called priority. In general, one element could have several graphical types. Each graphical type has a priority, and then the graph editor of conceptbase will pick the one that has the highest priority. So the lowest priority is 0, and here we pick priority 20, which is higher than the default graphical types that would also be applicable to a node-like objects. And then finally, there's a rule that says which things get this graphical type. So here it says for all x of entity type, x has a graph type entity GT. So for all instances of entity type, the graph type is set to this graphical type, like for employee or student or policy or customer. So they all get this white rectangle as a graphical type. So let's tell that. Now let's go to the next one. That is graphical type for relationship type. I can be a little bit quicker on that. So similar like before, white color and black color for a line and for the text. The shape is now not a rectangle, but a diamond. So a diamond shape for a relationship type, which is a classical way how to display relationship types in an anti-relationship diagram. It's again a node-like thing, so individual. And now the rule says that every instance of relationship type gets this graph type. And priority is 21. So if something is both an entity type and relationship type, it will be displayed like a relationship type. That's what this priority does. Okay, so next one is for task. Already, that's the last node-like thing that gets a dedicated graphical type. Again, similar like before. It gets this also white background color. Let's say we don't use white, we use like a bit more bluish, like 140, 140, and 255. That's more like a blue. The shape is a round rectangle, so with rounded edges, rounded corners, I want to say. It's also an individual, and it gets this rule that every instance of task has a graph type task GT. Okay, so let's tell that. Now there's also one link type that is special, that's a successor link of tasks. So tasks are connected by successor link, and that's the last example of a graphical type. So for all instances of task successor, the graph type is successor GT. So the exclamation mark syntax means this is the link that starts from task. So task has a successor link to itself, and that's the way how we refer to such a link. And this A is just an instance of that. So for all examples of successor links, they are displayed according to this graphical type. The edge, now this is a new property. The edge color is set to some light gray. The width of the edge is 2. It gets no label, so the label is made empty. Now it's not displayed like a note, but it's displayed like a link. So this is how to tell the graph editor how to use this graphical type. It's only for links. Priority 20, and the rule I already talked about. So let's tell that. That's now all the graphical types are told. There's one element that is missing, that is the palette itself. So let's tell that. And this just lists all the graphical type that belong together and gives it a name, like ER task palette. So we declare it as a specialization of our X palette, and that embeds this new palette into the default graphical types that we already have. So they all apply, but they are overruled by the definitions that we have here. Yeah, so the palette itself becomes then much smaller if we have the X palette defined. So let's tell that. And now the database knows about the new palette, and we can now browse our database with that. So let's start with the relationship type. at this meta class. No, that's nothing special. It has a row link to entity type. Let's see the instances of relationship type. 2 instances, and you see they are displayed as diamonds. And instances of entity type, they are displayed as white rectangles. You can connect them, so select them all and then press this connection button here, then you get all the connections are displayed. Move that here. Now let's see the task. Meta class task for the process model. So let's see what are the instances. Quite a number of instances. And yeah, let's make it a little bit bigger. That's it, because they are all instances of task. Since it makes it a bit cluttered, I hide this object, so that's the hiding button. Now let's see how they are connected. So this is obviously the start. Check policy. That's the finish. So that's our process model. Now this is connected to this relationship type. That's our input link. Yeah, so this is the assignment of graphical types. I have now removed all the meta classes, so we only see the models here, and it increases the improves the readability of the model. Okay. So I will include the link with all the definitions below this episode, and yeah, thank you for watching. See you next time.